Hey y'all. So today it's Iyslander versus Dromai, and yeah, let's get into it. I won the die roll and chose to go first. The main point is just to try and leak an arcane before they start getting ash wings on the board, because typically the loadout only has one AB. So if you find a red spell, you can actually leak in decent amount of damage on turn one. So yeah, here we go. We draw into Ice Vein, which isn't exactly the red spell I want to use turn one, because the fuse basically doesn't really matter. But you know, it's 5 arcane, it's still 5 arcane, so I still do send it. Cool. Opponent takes 4, and then, you know, pitches 3 reds to get like 3 ash. And then we go ahead and Waning Moon as well. Just to leak in, you know, at least 1 more damage. Since they only have maybe 1. Although I believe my opponent chooses to take it, so that's a card that they want to keep. So over there, I chose to Arsenal Ice Bolt instead of Arsenal Frosting. Which maybe was a mistake given... actually, no, I couldn't have known that my opponent wanted to keep that card when I was making the pitch for the Waning Moon. So since it was still early in the game and my opponent only has AB1, I prioritized the higher arcane damage spell in my arsenal, whereas Frosting is something you want late on when they have a bunch of Ash Wings, and you can just end their turn by like by using Frosting on an Ash Wing. But my opponent kept that last card in hand and took an extra damage for it, so I imagine it's a Rake the Embers. Which is definitely pretty fortunate for them that they found Rake this early. Because another thing about this matchup is that, you know, your opponent does need to find their Rake relatively early, otherwise you're just like pelting them with Arcane that they can't block. Yeah, so there we go. So it is a Rake. So now they have like 4 AB. So that's a little tough. And here's where, you know, I wish I had Arsenal the Frosting instead. But we do have this Blizzard as well to kind of stop the turn, so we're fine. Right, so before the Rake resolves, before they get the AB, we just Ice Bolt them. Because I don't want to waste an Ice Bolt on an Ash Ring to stop the turn. So I'm just gonna Ice Bolt my opponent before they have the AB. And so opponent uses one of the Ash, because their Ash trigger from Dromai is still on the stack right now, since they pitch a red for the Rake the Embers. So they will still have enough after Sandcover resolves to make enough Ash Rings. And then I decided I'm just gonna pitch the Waning Moon as well. My opponent needs to pitch that last card they want to attack with the Ash Rings, and I figure I don't mind taking 3 damage to send 3 damage. Yeah. Like, I actually decided I'm just not gonna Blizzard, because the Blizzard only buys me, like, 2 life, you know, if I Blizzard the first Ash Ring. Yeah, opponent pitches a red to pay for the Frostbite, and the attack with the Ash Rings, and I just take all 3, because, yeah, the first Ash Ring, you know, like the Blizzard won't stop that hit, so Blizzard's only gonna buy me 2 life. As in, it's probably better, yeah, this is better just for me to Coronet Peak on my turn. It's gonna be worth more than 2 life. Also, getting to Arsenal Channel Lake Frigid is definitely amazing. That's a card that I'm really looking to just try and keep for as long as I can in this matchup, and use that to try and, like, leak damage into my opponent while they can't leak damage into me. My opponent pitches Maraga. And with stuff like Coronet Peak and like Frostbite's taxing opponent, like they just get a million Ash in this matchup. So that's not really something, you know, we can stop. Okay, so opponent starts with Asvalai. Oh, right. So I hadn't noticed at this point, but I actually brought the wrong gloves in this matchup. Those are supposed to be Metacarpus nodes, because you do need that extra reach against Dromai. I do realize later on in the game, and I do swap it. My opponent does allow me to swap it. But yeah, just pointing that out for now, that those gloves should be Metacarpus. Which, you know, normally the Arcane Bearer isn't too relevant. Typically, you know, they want to play the Burn Them All like later in the game. Obviously, Asvalai is sometimes, like, it's the Arcane Bearer is relevant for Asvalai sometimes. Like in this case, you know, I could have used the one to block. But I just forgot that it's supposed to be Metacarpus instead of Ironhide. Yep, so anyway, so we respond to the invocation with the Channel Lake Frigid. And we've actually drawn into 2 freezing points, and that's actually fine when I have Channel Lake Frigid. Like, I'm totally happy arsenaling a freezing point, because that increases the odds that I can actually pitch 2 ice cards on the turn after this to keep the channel around for for another turn. So over here, I pitch an ice card to keep channel around on my turn. Arsenal the red. Next turn, if all I need is like 2 ice cards, and then I can just pitch them both like Freezing Point and Waning Moon to keep the channel around. So here we go. So here's our Freezing Point. And again, we're just coming in our opponent with a tall Arcane. So if opponent hadn't found that Rake turn 1, they actually are just forced us like eat this. Of course, the other thing is that Dromai has like very few blues. So, you know, there's a good chance they might be forced to eat this anyway. Also, a nice thing about a Freezing Point is that not fusing it doesn't actually give your opponent too much information. Because in this case, you know, fusing it wouldn't have done anything. So they can't actually, they don't actually know that, you know, I don't actually have an ice card to Arsenal. Which means they're still like, sort of playing around at least like 1 Frostbite, or at least they should be. So yeah. Alright, and we do draw into 2, actually we draw into 3 ice cards. Honestly, not the best. You would like your red damaging spells to sort of be a little more spaced out. Like drawing 2 in the same hand is not amazing, but it's still fine. Like I'm probably just gonna, yeah, I'm just use one of them to block. Alright, opponent plays another Asvalai. But with Channel in the field, you know, like, yeah, they have like 5 dragons, but they can't pay to attack with all of them, so, yeah, I'm not too concerned. Alright, and then they pitch a blue to attack with that Asvalai, so I know at least 2 more dragons are coming in. Yeah, and I know for sure I'm going to keep the 2 blue ice cards and the red ice veins, so this ice bolt is what I'm going to be blocking with. Yeah, so we take the Arcane, and I block with the ice bolt, and I think this was a mistake. I should have blocked on the second dragon, because just, I mean, it's a very minor thing, but, you know, there is a small chance my opponent pays 1 to, like, summon a Dromai, and then attacks with the Dromai, and I can actually block a full 3 with the ice bolt, whereas right now I'm only blocking 2 physical. Just a minor optimization there, but yeah, you know, something that could be relevant. Like, I know at least the Asvalai is attacking, so I might as well just wait till I get a bit more information if I send that. And then here, alright, so yeah, I make another mistake here. I send the Ice Vein when I really should have been sending the Freezing Point, because, so my opponent can tell, obviously, that I'm going to be keeping channel around the second turn, so they're already incentivized to block me out, in which case this, like, red Ice Vein's disruption doesn't really do much, because they already just want to block everything this turn. So for that reason, I should have sent a Freezing Point instead, Arsenal the red Ice Vein, so that next turn I have that disruptive ability. Whereas right now I'm sort of like concentrating my disruptive ability on this turn, like keeping channel and fusing Ice Vein, whereas it'll be just more effective next turn. So okay, so opponent pays 2 into Respite and pays 1 into AB, and then we just go ahead and pitch in Waning Moon. We have 2 ice cards in there. Yeah, and see, like I said, so my opponent just incentivized blocker. They block me out because they know I'm keeping channel. And then now, well, I can't do anything in that turn because there's red in my arsenal. And it's a Freezing Point, which is not super useful. Like, I'd much rather that be the red Ice Vein, and then now I can actually, like, disrupt my opponent a bit more, since, you know, I'm gonna have to lose channel at this point. Oh, it's very interesting. We sort of almost could have kept channel for another turn. If that erase phase was an ice card, we just pitched 2 ice cards to the Ice Eternal, and then also like Waning Moon. So, you know, that would have been really cool. But anyway, so opponent. Oh right, so opponent actually doesn't. They took a play back where they didn't pitch. They didn't block 2 on the Waning Moon. They took 1, kept a red, so they could attack with the Asvalai. Yeah, they took that back once it came to their turn, because they're like, right, I need to pitch for the channel. Right, so on our turn, we send this Freezing Point, and we found another channel like Frigid, so that's really good for us. So if we can keep this up, if we can keep up this chain of like having channel lakes for like 2 turns and like 2 turns and 2 turns, that's kind of that's a big thing that allow us to, you know, well, win this game. And then yeah, over here I finally realized, wait, I need Metacarpus. So I do go ahead and switch it. Alright, so opponent pitches to play Sand Cover, and there's a very interesting interaction over here. So what you should do in this situation is you let the Sand Cover resolve, but before your own arcane spell resolves, you activate Waning Moon. And because Sand Cover is Ward, if they don't pitch to block your Waning Moon, it'll actually eat the Sand Cover's Ward 4. Your 2 damage from Waning Moon will eat the Sand Cover's Ward 4. So my opponent's like forced to block my Waning Moon here. So they block the Waning Moon, they float 1, and then now this Freezing Point comes in for 5. Ward 4 plus that 1 floating blocks it completely. But that's a cool thing you can do if your opponent is playing Sand Cover into you. Right, and we go ahead and arsenal another Channel Lake Frigid, which will just ruin our opponent's day. And we draw into the third Channel Lake Frigid, and this is a little... that's not great. You kind of want your disruptive pieces to like be a bit more spread out. I think the worst thing that's happened to me in this matchup is I have Hypothermia and Arsenal, Channel Lake Frigid in hand, and a Popper in hand, where it's like I have like 3 things that like end my opponent's turn, like in my hand at the same time, which is not good. So yeah. So we're gonna look to like just keep this channel in the arsenal for a bit and like just not play the arsenal for a while, just to get the most value from our channels. So opponent activates Tunic, and we respond to the Tunic activation with Channel Lake Frigid, and with the Tunic activation still on the stack, we go and Waning Moon them. We do let our own Frostbite and Channel resolve first, of course, and Tunic still on the stack. We use our Tunic to Waning Moon them for 3. Right, opponent takes it all. Their Tunic finally resolves, although they do need to like pay 2 to like attack with anything. So, yep. So they pay 2 to attack with the Asvalai, and yeah, we could block and then just Coronet Peak on our turn, but like I just need to like in this matchup we just need to race. So opponent's presenting 3, we just take 3, and then we just send the blue Ice Bolt to them. So we take 3 to deal 3, which overall is kind of like what you want to do in this matchup. Oh, yeah, so over here I'm deciding whether I want to like Frosting and Ashwing and then Waning Moon phase, just to sort of reduce my opponent's AB a little. But I decide not to. I decide I'm just gonna Ice Bolt face, because like there's a good chance they found their second rake at this point, or they would be finding it soon, in which case like clearing an Ashwing just doesn't do anything. Like the way you attack this matchup is you attack their resources in hand, you don't attack the board. Because they might have like 10 AB on the board, but they only have like 4 to 6 resources in hand. Like, you know, that's... They can't pay for the AB anyway. So yeah, it's like you would kill Ashwings as like to stop the combat chain, but there's not much point killing Ashwings on like your turn. Unless you have Singes in your sideboard, but I don't. I'm not sure if it's... I just don't think it's that good a card. So yeah, so we use Ice Bolt face, get an Ice card in the pitch zone for channel, Arsenal the other channel. So again, we're hoping to keep this channel around for 2 turns. Although we draw into a hand that actually can't do that. We don't have a red arcane spell. But you can't CNC and Waning Moon, because Waning Moon needs you to have played a non-attack. Oh, and there we go, yeah, an opponent finds a second rake, so I'm definitely very glad that I didn't bother killing an Ashwing. Because then they would have 5 anyway, and then like the difference between like 3 and like 5 Ashwings is like not that big, so it's like, yeah. Yep, okay, there's a bit of lag there. But yeah, so opponent summons 3 more Ashwings, then attacks with the Asvalai. Again, because of the pitch, we know like they probably aren't... This is like kind of the only attack that's coming in. So actually, I think I decide not to pop the Asvalai and favor just like sending a CNC at my opponent. Because this Asvalai isn't really something I care about, especially, you know, when I have my 3rd channel in my arsenal. Like, it's just 3 damage. That is difficult for my opponent to attack with because of the CLF that I have in my arsenal. So yeah, this was a bit of a tough decision. Yeah, and I think I decided just to keep the CNC just so I can actually pressure my opponent. Whereas if I block, if I pop this Asvalai, I kind of have nothing to pressure my opponent with. So it just doesn't feel worth it. Yeah, so we take the Arcane, and then we, instead of blocking with the CNC, we just block with a different card, so that we can actually send the CNC at our opponent. Also, we haven't seen that many poppers, so I'm actually okay using a popper offensively here. I believe we've only seen one erase phase so far. So setting this CNC offensively is fine because, well, firstly, with Channeling Frigid already in our arsenal, and the fact that we have like 4 more poppers left in the deck, means that we sort of have the tools to like stop our opponent's turn. And we want to make sure we're doing that while sending damage. Like, if you just stop their turn but you don't send damage on your turn, it's kind of pointless. So I just play the Cold Snap. My opponent doesn't pay, and I freeze the Asvalai. I freeze the Asvalai instead of like the Arsenal because I'm sending a CNC. You know, if I freeze the Arsenal and I send a CNC at them, it's like not that useful. Like, I'm sort of like stacking my effects. Also, they have Crown of Providence, so you know they could just cycle Arsenal anyway. Yep, so that is what they choose to do. But they don't give me any more blocks, so I still got in 4 damage, and so I do prefer that line compared to like popping the Asvalai and then like just not dealing damage to our opponent. And then yeah, we draw into another popper. But we don't draw into any ice cards, so we can't actually play the Channel Lake Frigid, which is so that could have been really bad if we had no ice cards in here and no popper. Then our play last turn was actually kind of scary because we have no way to actually stop our opponent this turn. I mean, we could with Channel Lake Frigid, but that's a bit of a waste. To like not be able to keep it on your turn. So, yeah. Yep, so, I mean, this turn is looking like opponent starts with a red, so I know I'm just going to pop, like, the next thing. Like, I'll block 3, pop the next thing, and just send this Ice Vein at my opponent. Which is not how you want to send an Ice Vein. You obviously want to fuse them as much as you can. But, you know, like, sometimes the hand just line up like this, where it's like, you know, 5 Arcane is still 5 Arcane. That's 5 resources out of the hand, or, you know, you leak a bunch of damage. So, we pop the Yenderai, which is nice. Yenderai is like really annoying for us to get rid of. Whereas Asvalai, like, you know, you can kind of like Ice Bolt the Asvalai. Yep, so we just go send his Ice Vein to our opponent, and yeah, hope we draw an Ice card in the next hand. Oh yeah, opponent pitches 4 and takes 1. Oh yeah, I think they, at first they didn't realize it wasn't fused, and I point out, oh, it's not fused, and then they're like, alright, cool. And then they, yeah, take, block 4, take 1. Cool, and then they invoke Dromai. We definitely Channel Lake Frigid here. We have drawn ice cards. Yeah, so over here is an interesting thing. Again, I make another mistake here, which actually is a very scary mistake to make if you're in a tournament setting. Over here, I do, you know, take it back. I pitch the ice card on my opponent's turn. Like, okay, I guess this is not always wrong. It depends what you want to put in your arsenal. So in this case, you know, there's an argument that I might want to put like the blue Ice Vein in my arsenal. But I actually think I want the Cold Snap in my arsenal, in which case I can't pitch the ice card on my opponent's turn. I need to pitch my non-ice card, so that on my turn I pitch Insidious Chill. And then I get to arsenal the Cold Snap. So yeah, this is a mistake here, which I do take back later on. I pitched the blue Ice Vein instead of the Insidious Chill, which is like the reason why this mistake happens is because typically on your opponent's turn, like, at least what I try to do is pitch my 2 block and leave my 3 block in my hand, just in case things go wrong and I need to block. But when you're playing Channel Lake Frigid, that's like an exception. Like, you know, in those cases, you really need to think about like the ice card that they're pitching and the card they're putting in arsenal. As in the ice card they're pitching on your turn. So yeah, so we do the same thing where we play the channel, and then after we let the Frostbite and channel resolve. Oh wait, no, our opponent responds with Tunic, and we responded with our own Tunic and Waning Moon them for 3 before they get their Tunic resource. Yeah, so I swapped my pitch there, realizing my mistake at this point. And then, yeah, take 3 from the Azalai. And we'd be sending 5 at our opponent and Arsenal Cold Snap, so we're feeling pretty good about that. Okay, opponent blocks 2 and takes 3. We get to keep channel. Cool, and drawing into red ice cards makes it just so much easier to keep channeling around. Oh yeah, you may have noticed I have made some changes to the list. I have brought in red ice bolts at this point, and that's because I expect more Dromais than I expect Lexi. Previously, I was expecting a bunch of Lexis because, you know, a lot of aggro decks were running around, and so I preferred having Encase in my sideboard over Ice Bolt. But now that we are sort of in a... I mean, aggro is still obviously a huge thing, but it seems like people are preferring like these Dromai and these old hymns. That I decided Encase is not worth it in my sideboard, and I want the Ice Bolts now, which are huge in the Dromai matchup. Like Ice Bolts are really, really useful here. Yep. So opponent starts with attacking with Chromai, and they don't pay, so I need to decide what I'm freezing before I draw the card. And I decide I'm just going to freeze the Asvalai, because I doubt my opponent is playing the Arsenal card through Channel and through a Frostbite. Like, on my turn, they pitch 2 reds, and right now they're starting with pitching a red, so I doubt they're able to play the Arsenal card with just that 1 card left in hand for their pitch. Yep, so we freeze the Asvalai, and on our turn, we're going to be pitching 2 of these ice cards to send one of the ice cards. We're pitching Aether Hail and Ice Bolt to play the red Ice Bolt and Waning Moon. So we have 2 ice cards in our pitch zone. We're sending 7 arcane total, and we're just going to Arsenal Energy Potion, so I'm not going to block anything here. It turns out opponent did have the blue in hand, so they were kind of bluffing, but the resources in hand was very good play by them. Yep, so no blocks on Chromai. We just take that. And now opponent actually does play the Arsenal card, so that, oh yeah, like I said, like I was expecting the last card in the hand to be a red, but it actually turned out to be a blue. So they do actually get to play the Arsenal card, which is a Dust Up, which is a solid card. Except, you know, when they have like the difference between like 6 and 7 Ash Wings, it doesn't matter. Like when they have like more than 3 Ash Wings, it's like, it's kind of the same. Because at that point, it's just the number of resources they have in the hand, not the amount of AB that they have. So I don't really care about blocking the Dust Up, especially when my opponent's at 9. Like this is where, you know, I just need to like kill them. So we send the Ice Bolt, and we pitch the blue first, just to like sort of hide from our opponent whether we have the second ice card. Okay, so they pitch the red and the blue. They just take 1, and then we Waning Moon. 2 ice cards in there, keeping the channel around. Okay, and our opponent like blocks it completely. Yeah, and this is typically like what happens when you're keeping a channel around. Your Dromai opponent is very incentivized to just block out, because they won't be able to do much on their turn. So in this case, they can't even attack with a dragon. They move to end, and I tell them I have something to do before they draw up. So we definitely play the energy potion, and then I was trying to decide like whether I'm pitching to Waning Moon, or whether I'm just popping the energy potion. Right. So I play the energy potion. And I feel like I can afford to just pitch for the Waning Moon and then just send the CNC at my opponent. And Arsenal like the blue Ice Vein, just because it's the highest damage spell I have. And, you know, CNC, like, yeah, it's physical damage. But when my opponent at like 8, they still need to like kind of block it and give me 2 cards. In which case, like the fused arcane damage spell is like... Oh wait, actually my opponent's not 8, my opponent's actually at 5, because this is their turn. I'm definitely Waning Mooning here. Using Waning Moon here. So... Yeah, I don't remember why I decided to use the E-Pot instead of just pitching and then just sending CNC at my opponent. Okay. I see. Okay, so right. I think right. Right. Okay, so I think what I value doing. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I send the Ice Fan at my opponent. And I use my Tunic and pitch the CNC to Waning Moon. Right, so I preferred sending 5 Arcane at my opponent this turn instead of 6 Physical, because 5 Arcane is much harder for Dromai to block than 6 Physical. Yes, actually, I think I do agree with this. And E-Pot as well, it's not like something I really need in this matchup. And there we go, yeah, so my opponent, you know, gives me 3 cards, whereas if I just send the CNC, they will probably only give me 2 cards. So yeah, I do like that play. Yeah. And then our opponent attacks with Dromai. We just frosting their face. And the Frostbite's on the stack, and we're going to see whether they respond with their Tunic. Okay, so they do respond with their Tunic, and then we respond to their Tunic, sending the Ice Bolt. Oh, so there is actually a key thing here which I need to point out, which wasn't relevant here, but it's something I learned from this. At least at this point in the game, you really want to be cognizant of your Metacarpus trigger. So I should have called out Frost and play the Frosting, Metacarpus trigger, and then like layer it so the Frostbite happens first before the Metacarpus, just so I have full information before, I want to actually trigger the Metacarpus. And then now, it's like I send this Ice Bolt, and the Metacarpus is again on the stack, and I'm deciding whether I want to Metacarpus. I'm just playing around a potential like Sand Cover, which actually I don't need to, because like Sand Cover plus Tunic resource blocks like 5, but if I Metacarpus the Ice Bolt and the Frosting and my Waning Moon, well, I can't Metacarpus Waning Moon, but including Waning Moon, that's a total of 10 damage, 2 from the Frosting, 11 damage, a total of 11 damage. So I'm safe through a Sand Cover and that one floating resource. So I didn't need to like sort of think about the like Metacarpus layering in this case, but it could be relevant. So yeah, there we go. So I do pitch and I do also Metacarpus it, and that's not a Sand Cover, it's a red, so our opponent is just dead here. So yeah, we get there. Definitely the things that went right for us that game were those Channel Lake Frigids. Just, like we found them fairly early and we were able to like keep 2 of them around for like 3 of our opponent's turns. So that's really big. Things that went right for our opponent is that they found their Rake like really, really early on. So, after that point, it's like the blues start blocking 3. Whereas before that, it's like, the blues don't really do much. Yeah, so that was the game. Thank you for watching and hope you enjoyed it.